So in this video, I want to share like a little secret. It's a kind of a tool that you can use to go from being overlooked to creating a little bit more, meaningful connections with your prospective clients. So if you're like tired, like if you feel like you keep on, or that you keep losing prospective clients to like competitors down the street that aren't necessarily as skilled as you are, or maybe they don't have like the right expertise or experience to help the clients like you can, then this tool you're going to find very helpful. So I'm going to minimize myself here and we can get into it. Though, before I get into it, we have to recognize this one big problem that, everybody's facing right now. If you have a service business, if you're selling products, like everybody is facing this problem of a crowded market and everybody looks the same. Like there's an incredible amount of noise out there right now. And to make matters worse, like more thanks to AI, and believe me, I'm a big believer in AI. I'm very bullish on it, but thanks to AI and, sort of like improper use, there's more content being created now than there ever has before. And it's just adding to the noise and it's adding to the confusion. And so like, we have to do things to get ourselves to stand out. And if you do create a brand that stands out, feels different, is connecting with your audience on more of an emotional level, you're going to be able to grow your business. And so, that's what we do within the Brand Lab. We take people through this positioning roadmap here. In this, it's a 9-step program, and it takes you from blending in with that competition, the sea of sameness, the confusing marketplace, to really having a competitive advantage, like standing out, being different, getting noticed. For the purposes of this video, I'm really going to be focusing on the development of your brand personality and a small segment of that, which is your tone of voice. But before I get into all of that, know that like most brands out there are expressing their personality with their look and feel. And that's going to be things like their logo design or their logo system or their color system or typography or art direction, kind of like all of these things that we're looking at on screen here. And the tools, what they do over a long period of time and consistent use of those tools over a long period of time, what they're going to help you do is strengthen your brand recall and your brand recognition within your target audience, or your ICP, your ideal client profile. A really good example of this, to make it real, maybe it's something that you do in your personal life, is, I'm going to skip ahead here, is this idea of shape, color, content. So we start with the shape, which is the logo. We add some color, which is your brand colors. And then we add some content, which is usually like the name or the symbol or something like that. That's how people recognize brands. Okay. And it really happens in that order. So shape, circle, you add some color to it. Maybe something pops up into your head. Maybe you get an image, or you start to get some, a memory, or, some synapses are firing when you see this color. And I'll give you a minute. Like, I want you to answer this in your head. Whose brand do you think this is? If you answered Starbucks, you would be absolutely right. Like everything was working. You had an experience, whether it's positive or negative. You associated that experience with that shape and that color, and ultimately the mermaid that, lies within there, that is the content of this mark. Now, to do this, it takes an incredible amount of time. There's a lot of frequency. There's some repetition. So for us as, smaller businesses, service providers, it's important for us really to get clear on a couple of things in order to put this to work. One of them is like, who is our ideal client profile? How do we get in front of them, and that sort of thing. Video that I'll get into at a later point in time, but I'm going to illustrate a point here why, your ICP becomes super important, or understanding your ICP becomes super important. And it really comes down to this idea here, that one of the most underrated tools for brand recall, and I should say like underused, is especially with small businesses, especially with service providers, is the brand's tone of voice, your tone of voice. you're going to do three things. It's really the three things that I have up here on screen. It's going to, it's going to create consistent brand experiences, meaning if you're talking to your clients in the same tone, in the same voice, in the marketing portion of your relationship as you do in the sales portion of your relationship, and as you do in the customer service after that you convert them into a customer, you're going to build an incredible amount of trust. And so that's why we have to be very consistent. But before we can be consistent with our tone of voice, we have to develop our tone of voice. The next thing that we're going to do is create much stronger audience connections. So we've gone through the training of developing our ideal client profile. We know their wants, needs, aspirations, and we know what their fears, pains, and frustrations are that they're looking to solve. And we also can, sort of understand like who their personality is. Like we are profiling our ideal clients, right? So like with that information, we can sort of mirror their language. So there's a little bit of familiarity in our tone of voice as we go to market and see that. And they think, I kind of like, I don't know why I can't like put my finger on it, but I sort of trust this brand. Like it feels like it's for me. And that's sort of like what we're going for, right? It's the feeling, it's the gut feeling that your brand. The next thing that we're going to do with developing our unique tone of voice is differentiate our company or our brand. So again, like we are in this, I'm going to say it, it's down here in our tagline, like brands made different. We are in this to stand out. We want to be noticed. We do not want to follow the category leader or, maybe somebody that's making some waves right now. Like we have to do it our own way. We have to stand out, in a way that's 100% unique to us so that we can better connect with our audience. One of the vehicles that we can do that with is our tone of voice. I kind of mentioned this already, but like, the opportunity to mirror the ICP is so important because it makes the brand feel more relatable and it makes it feel more authentic to them. So how do you do it? It's not that difficult if we've done the pre-work first. So first thing that we're going to do is like adopt some of the communication patterns, some of the tones that we hear coming from our eyes. Take Nike, for example, like the motivational tone that Nike has mirrors the athlete's internal dialogue. And so they can see themselves in the brand and they can see themselves, sort of like getting better with these, with their products or that sort of thing. The second thing that we have to recognize here is that your values, your brand's values need to align or reflect with your customer. There has to be some synergies there. That's what makes you feel very authentic to them. And then your actions, of course, like, the proof, right? Like your actions should align with the customer's expectations. We're making some pretty big promises to build that trust. Like, we're setting expectations. We need to align with the customer expectations. So that brings me to like the voice imprint triangle. I'm going to go through, I promise you, I'm going to rename this stuff. But for right now, the voice imprint triangle is the name. And it's only because I haven't spent the time to come up with something better. But there's really three things that we have to pay attention to when we're developing our unique tone of voice. First one, distinctiveness. Are we different than the competition? If we sound the same as the competition, if we look the same, then, we're not giving our customers a reason to choose us. So we want to make sure that we are different, especially with our tone of voice. We want the ICP to say, man, there's something that I can't like put my finger on, but like kind of trust these guys. And the other folks aren't saying the same thing. Salience is the next. So, are we being noticed by our ideal clients? Are we drawing them into our world? Are we doing things that are getting noticed by our ideal clients and eventually, getting it to a point where we can convert them into a paying client? And then are we expressing ourselves the same way? Do we have consistency? Are we expressing ourselves the same way in all the places? And there's really like three areas of the business that we should be concerned of. One is our marketing, like our customer acquisition. Our tone of voice should be consistent there. The second one is our sales conversations or point of sale. Like our tone of voice should be consistent from what our ICP has interacted with in the marketing. And then the third one is the customer success, the customer satisfaction. Like when they are a client, like how do we approach different situations, whether it's celebrating some wins with them or maybe if something goes wrong, like how do we approach that in a way that's very consistent with the brand personality, the tone of voice that they had experienced before. Consistency is key because, each experience we're layering on trust and we're just banking that trust, and that's so important. It's almost like the new currency with the way the world is these days. So I want to give you the voice framework. The voice framework is obviously an acronym, but it really sums everything up nicely. V, values. Are we aligning our brands with our customers' values only? So reflect our unique brand position. In the brand positioning exercises, we have our clients go through what's called developing their only statement. We are the only company that does X for Y people. And, we want to make sure that our tone of voice is also following that or consistent with, that only statement. ICP, is it going to resonate with our ICP? Are we doing things like, do we have a good understanding of their tone of voice characteristics? Can we mirror those to create a deeper sense of trust within our brand's tone of voice? Category, is it relevant to your market category? If you've developed your market category, where you sit, like everything should be consistent, should be relevant to the category in which you play. And then emotion, again, like our tone of voice needs to evoke the right emotional response. So that's the voice framework. But really, your tone of voice, along with the rest of your brand and your brand personality, and again, over time, is going to increase the brand's mental availability within your prospective customers. The mental availability, what do I mean by that? It means lots of people think of it easily when they're deciding what and when to buy. So basically, when, if let's say you're an interior designer and you are at a point of sale with somebody, or you have somebody that's been consuming a lot of your content, but they're probably also consuming your competitors' content. When it gets to that point of them to say, this pain that I'm experiencing is enough, I'm ready to move forward, we want them to call you first. Okay, so that's what I mean about mental availability, or we want them to think about you first. So this goes back to that feeling of you get that sense that your prospective customers are going to your competition down the street, but the competition isn't necessarily as good at the things that you can offer your clients, but they're telling their story a little bit better. That's mental availability. We want to shift that. We want you to have more of that mental availability within your customers when they're deciding when it's time for them to buy your product or your service. Okay. So here are some really easy action steps that you can take. And honestly, you can do this right now to ensure that consistency within your brand's tone of voice. Okay. And then start to see benefits of this. The first thing that you're going to have to do is develop your voice guide. It's got to be aligned with your brand positioning, but it's guidelines that tell people how to write things. And it's also you're going to use this a lot if you use the AI tools that are available to us. So if you're writing some content, and this is where, when we're talking about the crowded market problem, this is one of the areas where your tone of voice guidelines could come in handy. And this is a proper use of using AI. You have this tone of voice, you have a topic that you want to talk about, you can feed those inputs into the AI tool of your choice, and it's going to give you a stronger response back. Now, like all things with AI, it's never perfect out of the gate, but it's definitely going to get you about 85% there. You can also use those guidelines to train your team. So customer service, what happens when things go wrong, or, how do we celebrate wins and that sort of thing. Oh, well, your support team needs to understand, like, this is how we're going to approach those things. One thing that I see people do a lot is they develop these types of guidelines and then they never implement. And so, like, the third action step here is make sure you implement this, but implement it across all of your channels for broad reach. Channels, divisions, if you have them, make sure that the sales team is consistent with the marketing team, and the customer success team is consistent with those other two, because that's how we're going to layer in trust. We're going to build a positive gut feeling about our brand just by being consistent with the language that we choose. And then the next thing is, and this is where a lot of people kind of go wrong. They set it and forget it. You got to monitor the activity. You got to make sure that you're staying on top of it. So, look at the marketing materials that are going out every now and then. Vet them against the tone of voice standards. If they're inconsistent in any way, just move them into a place where they're being a little bit more compliant with the standards that you put in place. I'm telling you, it's the best thing that you can do. And that's, really a good general rule of thumb for all of branding. It's monitor it, refine it, ensure consistency. Consistency is going to give you the trust over a long period of time. Now, look, as a part of this video, in the links below, I'm giving you 2 worksheets. One is the actual worksheet that we use to develop tone of voice standards within the Brand Lab. It's really powerful. It's really good. Take the time to actually fill out the worksheet in its entirety. The second thing that we're going to do, or that I'm giving you, is this AI prompt. Now, I always recommend that people go through and do the worksheet first. Like, AI is a great tool. It's going to help speed things up, but nothing can replace you as the founder, the entrepreneur, the person that, that is, at the head of the ship, like actually going through and problem solving and doing the work. Then go into the AI prompt and maybe fill in some of the gaps there. But it's an incredibly powerful AI prompt that's going to help you develop these tone of voice standards that you can use, really like next week if you get it done, and really get on that consistency train so that you can start building the trust in the customers that you need. I want to zoom back out here because, like, everything that I've been talking about happens within, this developing your brand's personality. So I like to explain it this way. This is where we humanize the brand. So, anything to make it feel less like a robot, more like a human, more relatable to our ICP, the better. People connect with people. And so a lot of our clients, when they go through this, there's a lot of ahas, like up here, there's a lot of research that's happening. And this is where we're actually like getting into the hard work of developing the brand. And I love to see those light bulbs go off, like on the strategy calls. Really important to know that this is only made possible by doing things like analyzing your competition, by uncovering your unique strengths, identifying gaps in the marketplace, having a detailed description of who your preferred client is. Like, who are those people that you love to, get up and have phone calls with? But all of these activities here are made possible by going back up here. So if you have that figured out, great, go ahead and use it with your, with the tone of voice worksheet that's in this video down below, and have fun with the AI prompt. Like, it's going to get you pretty far, but just know that there's, it's all coming from, other activities that come before it. So anyway, I hope you get a lot of value out of this video. I think the tone of voice is one of the most underrated, underlooked, underutilized tools that we have within our branding arsenal, and really the one tool that is going to help you build a tremendous amount of trust within your prospective clients, and hopefully help you move the needle, grow your business, fill the pipeline, and all that cool stuff. So, hey, look, I hope this helps you out. If you're interested in more of this stuff, click on to the next video, and I'm going to take you through the whole framework in detail. So like everything that we do here. So anyway, if you're interested, I'll see you there.